So also captured on the recording was Prison making his excuses. Apparently sick as a dog. Poor Sneck.
Cool. Okay, so while all this is happening, because it did take Feyan quite a long time to, brew up his potion and wrestle with the puzzle box and so forth. During the rest of that time, various others of you are taken to various places or given various things. Minim, nobody comes to attend to you. However, you suddenly are drawn to a signal that is that you suddenly become aware of, sounding out through the ether. Essentially, it's not something that the others are able to pick up. You get the feeling that it is located upwards, somewhere towards the top of the cathedral. And it has a strange, unfamiliar nature to you. Probably the strongest analogy is, it's something like a breeding call or a mating call or something like that. Something that is drawing you upwards with a, let's call it a biological imperative.
All right. Well, I'm first of all going to take Feyan's chair leg of truth, pop it in his hand, and clasp his fingers around it, just because he seems to be having a bad time right now.
Very nice.
That is much
Just
appreciated.
pat his hand.
That will come in handy, I think.
And then, yeah, I guess just kind of on top of the cathedral.
Presumably, no explanation to the others.
Obviously not.
They wouldn't understand.
So what happens when you do that is, let's see. Okay, you find yourself, as you warp as close as you can to the source of that signal, you find yourself in a largely empty and seemingly, for a long time, abandoned room that is built into the upper structure of the cathedral. The side of it is actually seems to be partly collapsed and kind of partly repaired with rather sophisticated looking building materials, but there's still gaps in the wall so that you can see out and see the whole city laid out kind of beneath you, essentially. In the room is a large-ish frame within which is something like a mirror, but it is made of completely black glass. It's not, so you can't see through it at all. It's not set against the wall. It's freestanding roughly in the center of the room. There's nothing particularly remarkable about the frame itself. It seems to be made of basically black metal and to be completely plain. No decorations or marking. It's just square, basically. As you examine that, you can see that this is a door for you. Not a door for anyone else, but it is a door for you.
Okay. I take a little step through.
As soon as you do that, you might remember, well, at various points during your adventures, but perhaps most prominently back when you went to talk to now Priley. And if you remember, you basically stuck your head right through the kind of dimensional crystal type thing that was being described as the beacon. And when you went through, you went into a strange, let's call it trans-dimensional or warp space, in which direct dimensions and directions and distances were all jacked the hell up. And it was somewhat like being in a very intense but completely silent storm, as there's a ever-present sensation of being kind of buffeted with winds and forces. However, after stepping through that apparently solid glass, let's say you have 2 phases to do that, and once you go through, You find yourself in the same room. As you look outside, you can see the city initially, but it is all in this very monochrome, buffeted, I guess you might say, kind of version of reality where although the physical structures, the buildings and so forth, are still there, they're somewhat insubstantial to you. It's also, you detect no signs of the normal city life that you could kind of sense before. You can't sense your companions or anything like that. So you find yourself in this room in that state. Um, the signal or scent, almost you might say, that drew you to this place with that biological imperative now basically surrounds you. It seems there are many sources of it in this general area.
So just to be clear, it's like another version of the city that I was in anyway, but
Yeah.
everything's a bit ethereal.
Yeah, exactly so. And you also get the sensation of several times you've felt this of kind of fully entering the planar realm and having a feeling of being kind of home, you might say, or maybe more accurately, in your natural environment.
Mm.
As you enter this, you get the familiar sensation of, I wouldn't exactly say entering a beast-like state, but rather realizing and recognizing certain beast-like qualities within yourself, which normally don't emerge when in what most people think of as the normal phase. And as that sensation grows, you can basically sense kind of accordingly with how you could feel that kind of signal that is drawing you towards it all around you. You can sense that there are many beings that are, at least to some degree, like yourself. In this vicinity, you can sense that some of them are kind of in the sky, like flying around essentially. Some of them are on the ground in the city, and some of them seem to have a stranger relationship to the concept of location. You're free to move or to, I don't know, ask any questions or kind of do anything. Or if you want, you can just kind of react and then I can move you on to something else.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to him. It's because the way I'm playing Minim is that he's kind of got a bit of both going on. He's sapient and intelligent, but he's spent a lot of his time in a place that has where he has been amongst feral things and has behaved ferally and
Yeah.
has been infused with this sort of feral nature, not on not just a psychological level, but on a kind of material level as well, because of the
Does
nature
he
of where he
undergo
was.
any kind of physical or, like, as it
Yeah,
were, physical changes that kind of reflect this?
yeah, because the way I've always sort of envisioned it is the kind of like the deep where what that he fell into
Mm.
um, is uh, like the deep sea.
Hmm.
So I really liked what you did early on in the campaign, where everything was kind of very sharky and
Yeah.
that kind of that kind of deep sea grossness. Um, so I'm kind of just running with that, and that's kind of what he's become like. That things
Yeah.
have a particular that the state of being of a creature being is influenced by the environment that it's in, that in that particular environment. And so
Yeah.
this sort of environment is now reminiscent of that to him, like the nasty blob monster was to some degree in
Yeah.
like the first mission. Um,
Is you might have gone over this before, but just remind me or like expand on it now. Like, how were you born? Basically, were you born like in a space like this, or was it that you were born in the normal world and then you somehow came into this kind of reality?
his parents were uh, kind of like had some power, some influence derived from this space,
Hmm.
and they built a house where they shouldn't have, and he fell off the side.
Aha, interesting.
And so they kind of like, well, particularly his dad, carried on doing that thing to whatever extent, but Minim was completely baptized in it.
So I think now that now that you're once again in this space, and somehow rather than getting here through, for example, phasing yourself, having gone through the mirror to do it seems to have achieved the transition much more completely, and the feelings and sensations that you've felt before are now much more strong and much more clear to you. And let's see, kind of like, I mean, yeah, not to equate this too much to like Minim sex life, but essentially what's happening now is kind of like certain instincts are awakening in you that are to do with essentially your life cycle. In the same way that things like mating rituals, nesting rituals, I guess maybe migrations and things affect animals and cause them to, have new goals compared to what they had before. And the way that this manifests in you now is you feel the urge to spawn, but when you think about how to do that, your mind is cast back to the events that happened when you first came into this realm from the outside. You remember being, suddenly finding yourself in this strange alien space that is, well, not merely alien, but has a completely different nature than the one that you came from. And as you described, like the ocean, it is a largely, I guess, hostile and predatory one. And you now remember, as you think on that time, being surrounded by these kind of apparitions and terrifying beings. And in short order, you had a great sense of exposure and having no way to kind of hide or evade from them. And shortly thereafter, you were approached by something large and scary. And essentially, well, you just remember it approaching and then doing something to you. And then you started your new life as this new kind of being. And you now realize through the urges that you feel that the way that you're going to continue your own life cycle is to confront a being that is like at least equal to, if not more fearsome than the one that spawned you through that process that you're now remembering. So in other words, you need to attack and take over a more powerful and more potent form of being. You're somewhat like a parasite that is going to pass on, your control and your sense of self into a frame more appropriate to your sense of your own power. So with that urge in mind, as you look out over the city, as I described, you're surrounded by various native creatures, and it is very much a food chain situation. There are some that are large and prey on the others, and the smaller ones prey on smaller ones, and so forth. So it is a case of how bold you are in identifying a target that will determine how far up or down the food chain you move, if you're successful in completing this spawning procedure.
Yeah, I think for Minim, it's very much about not just like hijacking, but so much as dominating and subjugating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
To the extent, like I would say, but feel free to input, to the extent that your will literally becomes it, and from there on, your beings are essentially linked and are the same, and in that way, you have effectively taken it over.
I think you'd be more interested in eating it.
Yeah, that would normally be very much your bag, but the instincts that are now awakening in you have have an unfamiliar and, in a sense, almost motherly sense of preservation, in the sense that You want the thing you kill to live and be you. Or that's what I'm thinking. I mean, if basically just to kind of pull back a bit, the aim of this kind of session and this little encounter with you in particular is to basically level you up to epic tier, if that makes sense. So it could be maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's that you simply want to absorb another being's power and augment your own in that way.
Yeah, I think from his very much human side, he's going to want to preserve his own sense of self, in
Interesting.
which case everything else has to be brought into, subjugated line with his own
Interesting.
sense of being.
Yeah, that's interesting because that is, I think, a dynamic that is very much absent in this place. It's very much just might makes right in the simplest way possible, in that the strongest and biggest things eat the other things or take control of them in some cases. But you're suggesting bringing, exerting authority essentially over these things instead. Is that kind of roughly correct? Or authority in the sense of dominance?
Well, no, it's kind of binary for him. It's kind of live and die, and that's it. And so he's more interested in killing and taking, which is maybe a much more human thing than animal thing. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just what I'm wondering is basically, how are we going to make you stronger through this? If maybe you don't feel that that's necessary.
Less a growing sensation and more a refining one. So yeah, he would absolutely be in the zone to go and basically gorge at this point, if he could.
Interesting. So maybe it's more like he's kind of, in a sense, this is a kind of blind greed or it's a kind of greed and a hunger that is even overwriting the deep natural instincts that are being awakened in you now.
There's something very abyssal about his state. His eyes are kind of that whole thing. It kind of just looks like an empty void. And
Interesting.
I've always seen him as kind of a black hole.
Yeah, so it sounds like the effect of this might more rather than kind of changing your form or changing your identity and replacing it or augmenting it, you're literally just going to stuff yourself with energy basically, and just through that simply put yourself into kind of overdrive for this upcoming battle.
Rather than expanding to more space, he wants to compress out the outside into him.
Okay, so with that, so I think we've got a handle on how he is feeling and what he wants in this scenario. So with that said, as I say, you have a whole population of various other horrible, nasty creatures of various forms, which you can basically, specify, or you can tell me if you want me to make one up. What are you going to do to them?
What sort of abilities?
What kind of target are you going to be looking for? Bearing in mind that this being the kind of realm that it is, this might be something like a huge, nasty like Cthulhu or sea creature or something, or it might be something that has other kinds of power besides size and strength.
Yeah, I think he's going to start by just picking the nearest thing and gobbling it up. Because it's kind of going to be this sort of Agario style thing, where it's just, grabbing the little things and working his way up.
Okay, interesting. So, let's say. So as you're standing in this room, you hear a kind of the equivalent of scuttling. Sound works kind of different in here, but you can sense these vibrations of something approaching with a somewhat spider-like gait, and then a tall, gangly, kind of very roughly humanoid, but the limbs are angled all wrong, and it doesn't really have a head, and it has a kind of skinny body encased in glistening black skin, basically crawls over so it's kind of roughly human-sized, crawls over the side of the wall, or side of the window rather, having crawled up the wall outside. To defeat it will be a level 4.
Level 4 what?
It's a level 4 creature.
Oh, right, okay.
So if you want to nom it down, you're gonna have to make an attack against it.
Okay. All right. So.
And let's actually no. I was going to say you could have an asset for everything in here, but it's just a different realm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do it.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let's do the standard. What's it called? What's that attack called? I've got a super phased attack jobby.
Oh yes.
Whatever it's called. Scott Flash Untouchable Ghost? No, phase attack. Where is this thing? Enhanced phase attack. Yeah, for sure. Just adds another 5 points of damage and ignores armor. But presumably that's not much of a thing here anyway. It's, difficulty 4. 3. Neat. Sit down. I'm clicking out. This will hopefully work. That doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. The effort didn't get stuck in.
Seems particularly.
What? It's got the old. It's made it a difficulty 8. Well, it's 24 thing. Let me try that. Let me just try clicking it again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Well, I hit it twice now, but whatever. They both work.
Yeah. So you successfully managed to easily overpower this thing, going by your first roll at least, and eat it. Could you briefly describe how that looks?
Just at this point, he's kind of writhing his way around. Gravity's not making much of a difference. He's kind of clutching at walls and stuff to move himself along and kind of wriggling through the ether. And just as he gets to this thing, he kind of goblin sharks his mouth around it.
Nice, right? So it gets smushed inside your creepy toothy maw, and there's a moment where just its legs are sticking out, and then you just chomp down on it, I guess. I kind of like the idea that as you're moving in this place, you can kind of leap I guess a little bit like Tracer, you can kind of look at a place and kind of leap towards it, and you just kind of grab it with your hand, and you reach out over much more space than you should be able to, and you just kind of pull yourself towards it.
Also, elements of the world morphing to him. So how the wormhole in the real world just kind of looks like a door here and a door there, and you just kind of move through one and pop out the other. But what's happening on this plane is it's kind of pinching those bits of space together, so everything's kind of moving to him and stuff.
Right, I think I'm going to do it this way. You eat this creature that was a level 4. I'm going to have you. So basically, you're, unless you say otherwise, you're basically just preying on anything that you can get your hands on. The more you eat, the more powerful you are becoming. So what I basically want to do is have you attack or otherwise interfere with a series of creatures that are going to go up in level each time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's skip you straight up to level 6 for a start. So you identify a level 6 target. Describe it, please.
Oh, I guess it's kind of, well, let's go with the kind of the fish motif, and it's kind of shark-like, but it's got, like one of those little crayfish type things, those little legs that they've got sticking out the bottom.
Oh yeah,
those little spindly things.
Oof,
Um,
nice.
and all along its body, it's got the same or very similar kind of black hair, kind of all going down the side of it to what Minim has, where it kind of floats and doesn't really obey gravity properly and sort of moves about with a mind of its own, sort of thing.
Yeah. And how big is it roughly?
It's level 6, so let's say it's about as big as your living room.
Oof. Nice. Okay, so this creepy thing is scuttling down one of the shadowy avenues of this weird phased city. You're up in the tower at the moment, so you're kind of far above it, and in between you and it, the kind of storm cloud-like rifts and ripples in the warp are kind of shimmering and moving. How are you going to... Actually, wait, let's see. As you're looking at it from the tower, it seems like it should be long enough away that it's not going to notice you, but you suddenly see it. Like as soon as your, the equivalent, or yeah, as soon as your gaze falls on it, it instantly basically inverts itself, like turns itself inside out. And on the inside, which is now the outside, is a huge layer of weird, creepy eyes, essentially. And they kind of blink in unison, and you sense a kind of like energy projectile-like attack coming towards you. So make a speed or might.
Would I have time to use my energy protection?
Is that described as being
It's an action.
action? Yeah, I don't think so in that case.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll just try and get out of the way then.
Cool. All right, so that would be a speed defense difficulty 6.
Right. I'm clicking out of the box. And oh gosh, right, so
Seems to misbehave more for you.
I'm clicking out so much. I'm clicking something else. Click out again. There we go. Right. Okay.
All right, did that work? Looks about right.
It.
All right, cool. So you successfully evade this attack, and presumably you're going to be wanting to attack it next. So go ahead and describe what you do.
Sure. Well, yeah, I guess I'm going to get right in there first of all, and I'm going to. I mean, these things. Can we sort of like? Does my phasing work in that I can deliberately move through them, sort of thing?
Let's see.
That makes
No,
sense.
I'm going to say in this realm, actually, everything is solid to you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to get one of its eyes out and get in there.
It's a classic move.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, actually, if I'm going to be getting in there, I'm going to... No, first of all, I'm just going to get some protection from that energy. So I'm going to sit tight for this round. Get
Okay.
that protection on.
All right. So as you're warping and flitting around like a kind
Super Saiyan weirdo.
Yeah, kind of like a mini black hole seems to briefly appear around you and then kind of condense around you, and it affords you your protection against the attacks that this thing is going to make. So with that said, you said you were like getting right in there. So are you doing that now? Are you like kind of swarming around the area, or
Swarming around it and kind of kiting it at this point.
All right, yeah. So as you do that, it has so many eyes that it's able to track you when it can see you, but you start going behind the cover of buildings and things like that. But then you start to notice that whenever you get back what should be in sight of it, it's actually moved to a kind of another location nearby. So it'll be like perched on a roof or clinging to a wall or things like that. And then, you're moving so fast that you seem to be kind of dancing around it for a while, but then suddenly it seems to get get the advantage, and it suddenly appears right in the path of where you're moving to, and it rears up its horrible leggy legs, and it kind of tries to slash you as you fly into it or past it. So this is going to be presumably a speed defense, again, difficulty 6.
Oh man.
You think look, you're used to being able to phase out of the way of things, but in this case, it doesn't actually work. So, it's so unexpected, and it just has so many legs to slash at you with, that they score across your weird porcelain-like skin and probably leave some at least spiderweb cracks over it as you take 18 damage minus that energy protection.
8. So, there we go.
And do you have any other armor as well?
1.
Okay, that would count as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that happens, and let's say you go I guess saying again, you go flying across the square and smash through a couple of buildings, and are left rolling along the spectral cobblestones. You hear a horrible kind of series of So yeah, go ahead.
Actually, sorry, but does this count as a physical attack for the purposes of the dimension that we're in?
Sure. In which case you're invulnerable to them?
Yeah.
All right. So that happens, just like I said, but when you pick yourself up off the ground, you're completely unharmed.
Hey.
Actually, wait. No. Yeah, let's go with that. That's the advantages of your leveling up. So, so that happened, and let's see, that was a defense, wasn't it? So you can now try and make an attack on it. You hear a series of kind of rather nasty, gristly kind of cracks as it's kind of warping around and trying to make its way back to you to it thinks, finish you off.
Okay. Yeah, we could say that any attack that's big enough to send Minim flying is going to be exerting some kind of force on his form. Even though he's got the kind of also the I can live in space kind of thing going on. If it's enough to send him moving, and if he's going to crash into something, velocity is going to come to an end, then maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. So actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do that, because I mean, you specified that you were moving around at high speed, and then it kind of threw you off.
Half damage?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. I can deal with that.
Cool. Okay, so that happens, and then it's coming in for the attack, basically. So I guess it's going to kind of leap at you off a building, but because it's your turn, you can make an attack.
Cool. Going to now get in one of its eye holes.
Nice. All right. Sorry, I think I just said, but again, it's going to be difficulty 6.
Yeah.
Presumably, I think this would be a might attack.
Okay, well, that's a lot harder. Let's put some effort into it. I can't really afford to. That's fine. Oh, if it's might. Ah, man.
I mean, you could maybe do things differently. What are you thinking?
Yeah, let me think. Well, I mostly just kind of want to gouge an eye to get through it rather than wrench it out kind of thing.
So like a deft scoop of your hand, basically.
Well, I just need the eye to burst.
Yeah. So you have you've got a spectral sword or whatever, right?
I'm just very bad at might actions.
Yeah, but I think this. Yeah, no. Whichever way I look at it, I think this has to be might.
Okay, let me see then. Let me see. I wonder if I can be cleverer with this.
Actually, no. You know what?
I can get his mouth.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say if you want to make a targeted attack that is going to do reduced damage, but is in this case going to open up an eye socket, I'd say that you can do a speed attack.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, in that case, I just want to get inside at the moment.
Okay, so in that case, make your speed attack difficulty 6. If you succeed, it'll be 2 damage, but you will have an opening in its body.
Right.
Nice. All right, you successfully do that. You can go ahead and put a description on that if you like.
Nothing too fancy. It's kind of charging, but rather than just taking it or getting out of the way, goes straight for it. Does that little that little trick that some bullfighters do, where they sort of jump over it.
Oh yeah.
Kind of just palms it out of the way and gouges an eye.
Nice. All right. So as you do that, even as you attack the eye, you're briefly kind of suspended over all of the others, and you see them flash and feel the space constrict around you. So make. Well, you could make a speed or a might defense against it. Difficulty 6. Actually, I'm going to say difficulty 7 because you got into its like close targeting area.
Okay. Okay, is it happy? There we go. There we go.
Nice. All right. So you the flash kind of blast up to your side, but you're moving so quickly and so deftly, and plus you managed to kind of throw it off by scooping out one of its eyes that it misses you. You now, yeah, let's just go ahead and say with your movement, you have the opportunity to basically wiggle your way, like more or less inside it. But you'll have to make a roll. This is going to be difficulty 4, though, to attack it.
Difficulty 4 to attack what?
Well, just its insides, I guess.
Oh,
is what
right.
you're
Got it.
going
Yeah,
for.
yeah, sure. Okay. With
So basically,
the
you have
whole-
like scooping access, essentially.
Yeah, with the whole real good, what's it called? Enhanced phase attack, +5 damage. Nonsense. Is this speed or might?
Let's just call it speed.
Okay. Wow.
Nice. So how much damage does that add up to?
9.
Okay. All right. You basically you do it a good deal of damage. I guess you're just like, tearing at its kind of inner flesh, basically, or
Chomping at anything that I carve away.
nice. All right, so you're doing that, and it's basically like spasming and kind of reeling all over the place and like bashing into the walls. It isn't dead yet, and what it tries to do is, let's see. Actually, it's going to try and basically warp out of place and try and kind of chop you in half with the boundary of that. So let's see. Just go ahead and give me a level 6 defense. You can use any pool if you can kind of come up with a description that justifies it.
I was thinking that could do the same sort of thing that I did in the spaceship, where did kind of like the warp thing to ride it around somewhere. I can't remember exactly what happened. So like an int type thing where tries to use this force to not just avoid the damage, but to chase after it, to kind of like ride in its wake.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, go ahead and use intellect in that case.
Level what was it?
Level 6.
Neat.
Nice. Damn, you're rolling up a storm today. So, you managed to, let's say, you sense that it's about to warp itself, and so you just like quickly tuck your legs inside it, basically. Keep your arms and legs inside the hell beast at all times when warping, and by carefully following that safety procedure, you manage to avoid any harm from that. You're now inside it, and you know what? Let's go ahead and say that that's, you're basically going to succeed your next attack and finish it off. So describe how you vanquish this creature finally.
I'm going to use my wormhole to pinch the space inside it together so that everything around it condenses into a neat bite-sized ball, which I will then bite.
Nice. Okay, so you successfully do that. You've now beaten a level 6 creature.
Make him a chicken McNugget.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to have you like fight another bigger one as well and tie that into the numbers you get, but just in the interest of time, I'm just going to cut it short there. So let's say that you can come up with it later, or maybe briefly describe it now. But you go and find some other much more powerful creature, or maybe even another one above that as well, and you have your nasty way with them, and succeed in gorging yourself fully on their energy and all that good goo inside, which is going to enable you to be more powerful and have some particular special abilities in the battle coming up. So, with that said, let us go to Shaq.
Yep.
So, as after the meeting kind of adjourned and Fayan started, being addressed by the Blaze Masters and doing his thing with the cube, Minim popped out of existence. Like he does indeed, and hold on, give me one more second to mute my mic and get a voice ready.
Who shall we be coming back as?
It's choice music, by the way.
It's really cool. I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Is this from Bastion, maybe?
It sounds Bastion, but it
could
isn't.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe Assassin's Creed Revelations.
That was a really good soundtrack. That was by Jesper Kidd, right?
Indeed.
That dude.
Yeah, that's in there. That changes now. I think was from Witcher 3. Anyway, as this as all that happens, Blaze, Shaq rather, I don't know, just a representative from the church. Let's say he's dressed in essentially a Numenera version of a baseball uniform, and he comes up to you and he says, "Okay, big man, it's time for you to get what was promised to you all that time ago when you made that bargain with us." And he with no further words, he turns and leads you out of the chamber, leads you down some passageways and so forth. Various passers-by and admirers turn to greet you and give you high fives and stuff as you go. You are led into a chamber, well, more like a large hall, I guess you might say, which, in common with many other spaces in this cathedral, is it's a larger space than seems like it should be able to fit in the building, even as large as it is. It is, how big would it be? Something like 200 by 100 meters, roughly, so a large space. It is very pure white and brightly lit, and the ceiling seems to just stretch up basically into infinity. As you look straight up, you can see somehow even brighter white light kind of descending from above. Within this space, let's see. Yeah, so the only features of this place, apart from the doors which just slide shut seamlessly behind you, are two pillars, one at each end of the hall, but they stretch up along the wall and just all the way up out of sight, with no visible features on them, essentially. And standing in the room is the person who you know in the legends of your village to be the one allegedly responsible for creating and committing the forbidden technique which you know so well and think of so often.
The Chaos Dunk.
Indeed. And the man responsible for it, well, you tell me who it is.
Dennis Rodman.
He's standing right there, and he's got a let's see, he's got a ball like yours, except this one has a strange appearance. You can't see inside it at all because it's coated in a kind of rubbery, reddish, orangish kind of substance, and it has black grip lines inlaid across it, and it has a small motif marked on the front of one side of it. And as it bounces, rather than making a somewhat awkward kind of clung noise like yours does, it makes this very satisfying kind of noise.
Oh my God.
It is
beautiful.
Wondrous to behold. And Dennis Rodman, as you enter the room, you can see his piercing gaze reaching you from all the way across it, and he's with no apparent effort, just the same kind of motion as when he was dribbling just now, which he was doing it with a very sedate and graceful tempo. With a similarly effortless motion, he just kind of slightly moves his arm, and the holy b-ball goes flying across the space, directly on a trajectory with you.
I catch it appreciatively.
It is incredibly light in your hands, quite kind of supple in contrast to your glass one, and when you dare to dribble it, it's like dribbling in heaven.
Yes. Yes. It's so beautiful.
It's able to perfectly capture and express the feelings running, the passionate feelings running throughout your soul at this moment. And Dennis Rodman, he sets his feet back a little, like crouches just ever so slightly, and then straightens his legs, and with the absolute minimum possible of movement, propels himself in a graceful jumping motion across the space and lands directly in front of you. And he gives you a small, respectful nod.
It's fitting that your gaze is piercing because you have a lot of piercings.
He says, wise words, my man. And he says, look, I don't have time for the full pep talk. Believe in yourself, you're good to go. Now, it's time for you to learn that which you have lusted after for your entire life. And let's see. Okay, actually what happens is, he reaches out his hand, and another b-ball, another holy b-ball, descends from above, as before you even entered the room, he had lobbed it far out of sight, and now it returns to him from the great heights above, and he just catches it perfectly in one hand. He looks to you, and he says, "Follow me, big man." And he disappears. Which direction did he go in?
There's only one way to go, up.
Exactly so. And so you lower yourself to jump. Even as soon as you do it, you can sense a fresh new wave of holy pressure filling the air sacs of your special holy sneakers, and you can tell that this is going to be a truly epic jump. However, you must make me a roll in order to jump equally as epically as Dennis Rodman. So give me a might action. This is going to count as sports, obviously, and it is going to be difficulty. Duncan with the big man is going to be a difficulty 10.
All right.
Because the chaos dunk is truly impossible.
I'll take it. I'm going to go into my transket ball, which is a frenzy, and This is the thing that I've been trying to do. This is the secret I've been trying to unlock. It is the object of my entire basketball cult's studies and practice and discipline and meditation and athletics, and so I am pulling out all the stops here to make this happen. And
All right, as you sorry, yeah, no, go ahead.
and then I also am specialized in jumping in particular, not just sports but jumping. And I'm going to use the might of my enormous legs to propel myself into the air.
All right, so I'd say you get 2 assets and you're specialized. And just for good measure, let's reduce the difficulty by 1 as well. So that brings it down to a 5.
To a 5? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then any effort that you apply will further reduce that.
Okay. I am down with that. Putting in lots of effort because this is the most important thing.
Nice. There is truly no way you could mess this up, as this is the culmination of your purpose in life. As you lower your powerful haunches down to prepare yourself for this jump, you actually see and sense the space around you. In fact, seemingly the entire holy court, bending around you, kind of depressing downwards. And you realize as you reach the bottom of your crouch that you need to set your sights on the highest possible point that you can see, directly into the center of the light, where you can just about see the bottom of Dennis Rodman's Holy Air Jordans, in order to truly set your goal as high as it can possibly be and reach for the stars. With all this, the release of energy as you jump is immense. There's a kind of rubbery squeak as your shoes leave the ground, and you go soaring up, directly up, hot on the heels of Dennis Rodman. As you approach him from below and then like draw level with him because anime, you and you know action lines are fast moving past you. He looks down to you and he says, "I knew you could do it first try, big man." And let's see. He turns to you as you're both flying upwards, and he says to you, "Now you tell me, how far up do we need to go?"
Oh boy.
All the way? Oh wait, no.
All the way up.
Sorry, got excited.
Thank you.
You got it in 1. And with that, he let's see. Okay, he enters the special stance of infinite flight, which is he carefully balances his b-ball on top of his head and flattens his arms down against his body for maximum aerodynamicness.
Right.
And with that, his in fact, give me a I think, well, in fact, this would be speed. Difficulty, let's say 8 with this one, to mimic his stance.
And I'd just like to remind the audience that all of this in the world of Numenera is science.
Absolutely.
Well, this is sports science.
The sweet science. Oh my goodness.
No!
How does that work?
Oh geez.
Let's see.
We technically don't have to roll, but oh dear.
No, I know what it is. Okay, so you see Dennis Rodman adopt the final stance in order to achieve infinite acceleration, and he starts to shoot up ahead of you. You see without a word spoken that you have to mimic him in order to reach the same heights. So you put your ball on top of your head, but because actually, hold on, 1 second. What does Dennis Rodman look like?
He's got very colorful hair.
Okay,
got
Dennis
colorful
Rodman has hair.
Mhm.
It is
don't.
his. It
Does he
is
have
his
orange
hair, which he has all kinds of colors of hair.
Yeah.
But because it is
wow.
which is perfectly gelled and spiked in a kind of bowl shape, you can't see it when you're looking just at him. But if you were to look from above, you would see a perfect bull rest, shaped into his hair. However, you lack that, and it seems that he did not plan for that failing. As soon as you put the ball on your head and then put your hands down against your side, it just whips off and goes falling away downwards. Dennis Rodman turns to you with his eyes wide, and he says,
"You really dropped the ball, man. All right, now we're gonna have to do this."
And he basically, let's see, what's he done? Okay, what he does is he turns, perfectly keeping his composure so that his b-ball stays on his head, and he basically goes into the what would you call it, like the alley-oop kind of gesture to give you a leg up. By going into that posture, he slows himself down with the air resistance enough that you can catch up with him, and he says,
"You're gonna have to take mine." And he looks up at his people.
Incredible.
So you are going to have to basically approach him, get boosted by him and take the b-ball at the same time in order that you can be the one to reach the infinite heights required for the Chaos Dunk. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to make you roll for this one as well.
Okay.
This is going to be... Actually, wait, let's see. No. So let's go ahead. So let's make this one as well difficulty 8, and this is going to be speed again.
Okay. I know that it all comes down to this, so I'm putting in a grip of effort.
All right. So as you expertly maneuver yourself through the air to pull off this saving move. As you basically approach him, we go into like an anime frame where you're both saying a lot of things to each other in the space of about like 0.1 seconds.
Of course.
This all happens as you're like putting your, resting your sneaker on his hands, and he's boosting you up past him, and you're taking the b-ball off his head at the same time. He says, let's see. He says,
"Listen, big man, b-ball is my life. When you take my b-ball, you take my life. But it's worth it to pass on this holy technique to you. Where I fall, you must go on and truly score the winning point in the battle that is to come. So take my b-ball, ascend to the infinite heights, and when you get there, you know which direction you'll have to go. Go to it, my man." And then
vroom, he just gives you a mighty boost that just sends you flying with seemingly infinite speed up into the white light up above, and you see his body falling down below you as the b-ball essence that's been keeping him alive for these many millennium go out of his eyes, and he goes to the big reserve bench in the sky.
I look down and whisper, "Thank you." And I look back up, and tears are streaming out of my eyes.
As this bright white light is like getting closer and closer and slowly obscuring you. Back down on the ground of the hall, now that you've descended far up into the heights. Let's see. Well, at least a whole bunch of baseball cultists is gathered to witness this holy event. They saw you go up over half an hour ago, and they're like whispering among themselves, like, has he ascended into the light and entered the Ultimate League? No, it's not possible. And then from above them, there's no sign of Dennis Rodman. He just he entered the Beeble realm and passed from this realm of existence.
He would burn up re-entering the atmosphere. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no, he with a smile on his lips. But suddenly, one of the baseball cultists does the what's it called, the home run pose, and just points his baseball bat. That's what those things are called. Right up into the sky, and he says, "My God, is it? Could it be? Could it be?" What do they see, and what happens?
I weave the basketball between my legs repeatedly, and I come flying down, just zooming at impossible speeds. The tears of sorrow, but also joy. The complicated basketball emotions I'm feeling, streaming down behind me as I'm plummeting toward the ground. At utterly absurd speeds, just my tears flow upward into the sky behind me, and
as you that is excellent. And also as you descend and you finally after to you seemingly untold time, just in a pure white light where the true nature of Beeble was finally revealed to you. Now as you descend back to the heavenly plane and you see the holy markings of the Beeble court approaching from below you, you see that even though there was no visible hoop on these poles before, now that you have taken control of your basketball destiny, the hoop is where you say it is.
Excellent.
So how do you land this one home?
I stretch out my gigantic body, and I hold the basketball directly underneath me, and both the ball and my body go through the hoop.
This seemingly impossible event triggers a gigantic explosion, which is, however, fortunately contained by a
the bounds of the court, right? They're sitting in the stands.
So, of course, that makes total sense. I mean, that's sports right there. So exactly. So the entire infinite space encompassing the court and up into the white light is subjected to the full terrifying and, for now, undescribed power of the chaos dunk. And when it stops, let's say even the bounds of the court could not withstand being cratered and cracked by the force of the impact. Smoke is rising up from it, and Shaq is standing there when the smoke clears, just dribbling with what emotions are coursing through him now.
Pride and a sense of appreciation for the teamwork that Dennis Rodman displayed. He's now
he truly gave it his all.
Indeed.
Quite literally.
He took one for the team. Thank you.
Nice. So that as you say that, the camera is just like panning slowly up from your face and then up into the sky and up into the white light up above, and you briefly see a faint image of Dennis Rodman's face smiling down at you.
He's naked.
And and he's naked. And with that, we return back to the scene of the chamber. Let's see. I realize we've left it kind of short for time on night, but let's run over a little bit and get it done. I didn't have anything too complex in mind actually for you, but something that is very cool, which is you get as the others depart to face their various ordeals and level themselves up. Let's say it's the lady with the green hat, the robot-y looking one.
Yeah.
Who approaches you and beckons you over and basically says, "Hey, I've got I've got something good for you. And she brings you through various passageways and whatnot to essentially something like a laboratory. And she says, we have been watching your prowess and the techniques of everyone in your group. Besides being truly impressive, in your case, they are spectacularly kinetic. Therefore, we have decided to unlock from the vaults this special item, which is for your use.
Hook.
Funny you should say that, Minim, because, and she, let's see, she says, I'll show it to you. It's better this way. And she basically leads you kind of through the lab. There is a series of like heavy locked doors that she unlocks and takes you through. And let's see. Yeah, so when she opens one of the doors, it's yet another impossibly vast space that she takes you into. And what this is kind of imagine the Scottish Highlands, but with the cliffs broken, with a big set of cliffs that is broken up and kind of floating in the air, basically. So there is a large number of like rocks and boulders up to large like bits of mountain that are just kind of floating in the air and spinning around. Next to the door which she opens up, which she leaves open, and as you look through it, you can see back into the technology-filled room that is behind it. But in this space, even though it's seemingly out in the wilderness, there is next to the door a series of like big, I don't know, cabinets, I guess you might say, just kind of storage units and things, along with various diagnostic equipment as well. She takes you over to one of these, and as she's moving, she explains, the trouble with this is that everyone who's tried to use it for protracted periods has been more or less unable to control it very well, and it has generally resulted in quite messy results. But having observed your prowess with these things, we hope that you are going to be enough of a pro to be able to use them. So, and she unlocks a cabinet, and what is inside, suspended, like floating in a kind of lasery looking space of a few feet across, is, let's see, it is basically, it's like a spine made out of glass and 4 glass rods. And she says to you, this is what we call the gravity tether. It's a device which functions somewhat similarly to the setup that you have devised for yourself. It enables you to tether yourself to a remote spot. And
sorry, I'm not sure about your accent. Are you saying tether?
Yes.
Yeah, tether.
Okay.
I'm saying tether.
Okay, so it can zap people with it. Yes, a taser.
No, a tether. Forget it. And she says, with this you can, grapple yourself, you could say, to a remote point that you can see, and then exert a force on it between there and you. And with this, you are able to fling yourself very fast all over the place. She says, in order to use it, it is going to require a certain procedure which will bond these items to you. But don't worry, if you splatter yourself, we will be able to recover them.
That's a huge relief to me.
This is an ancient artifact of the church. It is vital that it be preserved. She seems, as a machine-looking person, she seems to care a lot more about these things than she does the people who use them. She says they are placed here because this is a good testing ground. We figure if you are able to navigate this place without becoming flat and red, then probably you're going to be able to use it in most of the circumstances that you want to. So she directs you towards, let's see, I guess it's like a kind of like a round phone booth, I guess you might say. And she directs you to stand in it. She's working in a very like matter-of-fact kind of manner, and like not really giving you space to answer any questions. But at this stage, you could interject if you wanted to.
Okay. Will I be able to? Is this going to be on me permanently from now on? Is this like a
yes? Well, I mean,
one
until
and
you
done
crash.
procedure? Right. Okay. Just so I know.
Okay, good then. And she continues making the preparations and so forth. Are you just going to like go through with this procedure, or are you going to raise any other objections or
I
anything?
mean, Nai's never been massively into technology, so unless something seems really weird or especially weird to her about what is going on, then I guess she does like the sound of what this will do a lot.
All right, so you go and stand, pardon me, in that little booth thing. She brings over the items. She just kind of lifts up her hands. Actually, she has like very technological looking gloves that kind of hum as she lifts them up to the items, and with that, she's able to basically kind of levitate them and bring them over to your position. She slots them into like hoppers, I guess you could say, on the sides and back of the machine, and she says, as she's like fiddling with controls and like turning things on, and the machines are hovering around you, she says, don't worry, this won't last very long. Click, click, click. Although, click, click, it will hurt a great deal. Click.
Wait,
and
what?
you get basically shot with these things. One of them goes into each of your calves and one into each of your forearms, and the spine thing basically gets like shot like onto your back. It doesn't like it has, I don't know what you call them, like ribs, I guess you might say, like small ribs that skewer into your flesh either side of your actual spine and bind into it and around your ribs in a process that is extremely painful for you, but which the lady pays no particular attention to.
Okay, so I'm shouting out shit, but it's one long shit that lasts the entire length of this procedure.
Well, it's a jolly good thing you've got that clone tank.
Yeah. All right. Despite her flippancy, this is actually a pretty dangerous procedure that doesn't always work. So I'm going to have you give me a, well, might defense, I guess you might say. Difficulty 8.
8. Okay, might defense.
Roll to not die.
Pretty much, I'm
Put some
trained.
effort into this.
I'll put a little effort in. Okay, so it's just might defense. Let's see. Trained. How much effort I'm going to put in? Quite a lot, really. 2, 3. I'm going to put 5 effort in.
Nice. Whew, nice. All right. It hurts so much. It hurts like receiving about 50 giant piercings all at the same time. But you're a tough gal, and well, it doesn't kill you. So although you do scream shit for a very long time indeed,
Well, I've stopped now, and I'm moving on to threats.
Those big mountain climber laps.
So you find yourself, you're like suspended in place basically while the procedure goes on, and you can feel these like ribs and tendrils and stuff basically entwining themselves with your kind of body structure. And in particular, like kind of feeling like they're basically wrapping around and knotting themselves around your spine and your ribs. And you feel yourself getting kind of like drawn back, like your arms and legs get kind of dragged backwards, and you get, your back is basically arched because of this for a while. Anyway, very uncomfortable, but you manage to endure through it. And the lady goes, "Oh, that's fair." And
What?
she says, "Oh, that is unusual."
You survived.
Yes, that you survived. I mean, good job. And you're promptly released from this kind of binding force. And so basically, as you look now at your forearms and calves, basically these kind of glass rods, they're basically implanted in you, but the outer edge of them can be seen like emerged along your arm, basically, along the kind of, the outsides basically of your forearms and your calves. So they're kind of semi-visible. If you like reach back, or I guess kind of look back, let's see, I guess technically it would have like ripped through your clothes as well. So I guess that your top kind of hanging off your shoulders somewhat. But anyway, the spine is basically like laid as closely as possible over your own spine. It hasn't like replaced it, and it hasn't kind of displaced it too much. But it is very much a part of your body now. And with that, the lady starts like running through some diagnostics and checks and stuff, like runs basically a tricorder over you, and says, okay, this is all looking good. Okay, and she...
So I'm on the ground panting. I'm like, once I get my breath back...
She's paying no attention to that.
You better be running.
Saying, come on, you're a tough girl. And
I'm going to punch your kidneys out.
She crouches down, well, a few feet away from you, and you find yourself kind of unable to really easily get up. And she says, no, you've got a well to save. And she points upwards at one of the... There's like a particularly large rock which is floating. Basically, okay, so there's all these rocks, and they stretch up to a distance of, I don't know, half a mile, let's say, with distances between them ranging from anywhere between like a few meters to like a few dozen meters.
Okay.
And there's a particularly large section of this mountain which is floating basically up at the top of all this. And the lady stepping back from you and saying, okay, I'm going to engage your actuators now, so you should be able to move normally, but no attacking, you naughty girl. And she just trusts you not to, seemingly, or maybe she has something else up her sleeve. But in any case, she pushes some buttons, and you find yourself more or less able to move normally. And she says, now before you take out your anger on me, and she points up at the very large rock up at, like half a mile up. Actually, let's make it more dramatic. Let's say it's about a mile up. And she says, okay, now, if this is all working, you should be able to do this. And she points at it and she says, split that.
Okay, that rock?
Yes, that rock. Yes, that's what I'm pointing at. Nothing else up there.
Right, what's the difficulty in this?
Okay, so you stretch out your limbs and kind of try and get a feel for this strange device that's been implanted in you. Let's say, let's just go ahead and say that you like raise your palm up to kind of point towards like a relatively nearby rock, and instinctively you're able to feel that as your hand kind of moves, it varies the amount of, first of all, the amount of grip that is exerted on the rock, and then as you kind of grip your fist tighter, it starts to exert a force on you that is kind of dragging you towards it. So let's have you make, first of all, actually, you know what? I think the first one's going to be an intellect roll, actually, to like partly figure out how the interface between kind of your mind and body and the machine works, and partly just to figure out the basics of like how the force responds to your action, how that kind of moves you in space. So I think this is going to be difficulty 5, but it is going to be intellect, which is not your strong point so much.
No. Right, difficulty 5. Effort. Let's see, I'll try not to drain myself completely, but I'm going to put 3 in. Here we go. Oh!
Nice. All right. So not only do you successfully fling yourself up off the ground and in the direction of that relatively nearby rock, but you basically find that having, like, in order to climb and to be so proficient at it and to do all your acrobatics, you have to be kind of supremely adaptable to different kinds of movement and forces like acting on your body. If you're suddenly falling off something, you have to be able to come up with novel ways to react to that. And because of that, you're able to more or less instantly get the hang of how this motion works. It's a very simple relationship. You just grip your hand and that increases the amount of force. And then if you vary that over time, then it kind of slings you in different directions, basically. And you're very used to that because it's more or less the exact same way your swords work, except in this case, you don't have to kind of fling out some kind of hook to attach to the point. You just literally identify it and you just are able to cling on to it and then exert basically arbitrary forces on yourself. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's okay. I was just wondering
Sorry,
if it was some sort of physical force or,
It's basically gravity. So when you do this, you're manipulating how gravity is affecting your body. So you're essentially falling towards the spaces that you're wanting to fall towards.
Okay. And I can
so you
could I
manage
reel
that.
this in and out?
Sorry, yeah.
Could I sort of reel this in and out?
Yes, you can propel yourself, forward or backwards, or more or less in any direction. But it's as if you're swinging on a tether that you can lengthen or draw in. It maintains your momentum basically until you apply forces to it.
Okay.
So you can't just like fly around arbitrarily, but you can basically go full Spider-Man.
Nice. I like
So
that.
with that, yeah. So with that, So with that minor effect, let's just say that's enough that you can get the hang of like navigating yourself around. You're able to just, with surprising, or maybe in your case not so surprising, grace, through this kind of like asteroid field, as it were. And you fling yourself up through it towards that giant rock. Now, she told you to split it. It's not immediately obvious how to do that. You don't have your swords with you. But she did tell you that the device functioned roughly analogously to the setup that you had before. So let's have you do... Okay, this is going to be it's going to be a test difficulty 8, and I'm just wondering what pool it can be. I'm just going to say whatever. It's late. You can use whichever pool you want.
Okay.
As long as you can kind of justify it with your description.
In this case. Very much so. So this is a speed defense sort of thing, is it, or is it?
No, it's going to be an attack.
Right. Can I count any
exactly
bladed weapons? I'm sort of imagining. Would it be the case that I am almost trying to project the fact that I have swords, or something like that?
Essentially, yeah. Actually, I'll go ahead and just do the description first. So essentially, as you you're approaching this thing and you have an intent to destroy it, and instinctively you kind of let's see. Gee, how does that work? Okay, never mind. I'll maybe refine the description later. But essentially, you feel. So you've been feeling that your kind of grip and your swing is affected by the way that you kind of grip your hands and so forth. You feel as well that when you like bend your hand over, like when you bend your fist towards your wrist, you can feel another type of force projecting out of your forearms. And as you approach this rock, you instinctively realize that, the tighter you kind of curl your fist around, the more solid this force seems to become. And so now go ahead and roll that attack, that speed attack.
Okay.
Difficulty 6, I think it was.
You did say it to be.
It's late, let's say 6.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to put 7 effort in.
Damn. Nice. All right. So basically, kind of as you might expect, you feel that you're instinctively able to kind of deploy this force, and you can feel it kind of drag, like exerting a kind of weight extending out of your arm in the same way that a sword does. But it doesn't seem to have the same sense of like balance and coordination that a sword does, because you can't really feel a end to the to the distance that this force exerts on, if that makes sense. So as you go flying towards this giant rock, you go for broke and figure why not, and just swing your arm at it as if you were going to cleave it with a sword. And with that, the entire rock neatly splits in two and separates apart, and you go flying up between the two halves, having successfully mastered the gravity tether and its navigational and offensive capability.
Now that is anime right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of swing down to the ground. Well, if there's nothing left for me to do.
Yeah, that was the test of it. So yeah, you can certainly swing your way back down onto the ground.
Okay, so I swing down and I approach your woman. What's her name again? Or did we learn it?
Let's see. Her name is going to be Giko.
Giko. Right. I approach her and say, "That was amazing." And can I give her a hug?
She says, "Oh," and she does indeed give you a somewhat stiff and awkward hug. Not least because of the fact that she's covered in loads of machinery and stuff.
I knee her in the crotch.
She goes, "Oh man, I should have seen this coming." She
seriously, thank you, but you should have told me.
She just curses in French as you as a righteous exit. Cool. Okay. Yeah. No. So that's it for the session. I had stuff in mind for Varix and Station as well, but they're not here, so I'll probably go over that with them separately. But yeah, like the idea with this is basically you're going to be much more powered up in the battle to come. You can. If you want, come up with basically abilities that are kind of, appropriate to what you've learned. Shaq in particular, we might go over these particulars of the Chaos Dunk, but you can also tie in like other abilities as well. But kind of in general, I don't want to completely overhaul your skill sets as such. What I want to do is basically keep more or less the same ones, but basically like put a multiplier on all the numbers and tie that into the scale that you're going to be fighting at. So, so in other words, something like a spaceship, for example, is going to have kind of a similar number of hit points to the enemies that you've been fighting so far, if that makes sense.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, Fayan, is he temporarily insane or permanently insane? As a result of these things?
That will remain to be seen, I think.
Okay, no, that's fine.
As will yeah. I think we'll leave the exact effects of what happens when you take the red pills until the next session. But basically, in the meantime, I'll give a little thought to it, but also feel free to yourselves put a bit of thought into any ways that you want to kind of expand or change your characters in line with this in preparation for an epic scale battle.
Awesome. Okay.
So is the next session likely to be the very last one then, do you think?
No, I think the battle's going to take a few sessions probably.
Okay.
Or, well, the battle and whatever the after effects or aftermath or effects of that are. It'll kind of depend what happens in the battle if I want to add a twist in there basically. And
Okay.
Maybe something else will develop. But yeah, I'm wanting to bring the adventure as a whole kind of to a close at some point soon. So
When did we
to other things?
When did we start doing this? It was beginning of this year, was it?
Yeah, pretty close. I think it was maybe in February.
I remember it was before
So, yeah.
the PC Gamer Weekender.
No, I just
Yeah, that's right.
Should I stop the recording here? Well,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I thought we had started it when the PC Gaming Weekender was.
We had